Now, Positively Ernie with Ernie Anastas, a New York TV legend and radio host with great positive stories and interviews.
Thanks, Ernie. You're the best.
And now, here's Ernie.
And hi, everybody. Welcome back to our show. Love to be with you, and I hope you enjoyed being here as well. You know, I've been in the news business a long time and still enjoy it. Anchoring the news in New York City for 40 plus years, and before that in Providence and Boston. And I just have enjoyed this all my life. And every so often, you know, you end up people who are really extraordinary, people who are very special, people who have a gift in our industry. And this is somebody that I want to introduce you to because she's a very active person in the field of media. Her name is Jaci Clement. I want you to say hi right now. Hi, Jaci. Say hi to everybody.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm so
everybody.
happy to be here.
Jaci, I'm happy to have you here. People should know that, you know, you are a media expert. 20 plus years in the media business, doing so many things in communications, and you are also the CEO and the executive director of the Fair Media Council in New York, Long Island, and you are dedicated and you are devoted to helping people. You're interested in making sure that the quality of our news is good. Yes. Which is a tough job, and we're going to talk about that.
I have job security. Let's just put it that way.
I like the way you put that. And you also want people to be media savvy. So you've done a lot of things, and we're going to talk about each one of them. But first of all, people should know, you're looking at a grown woman here who's really qualified and experienced. But you started when you were in the fourth grade. You had an interest when you were a fourth grader.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yes. What happened was, now, I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio.
Yeah.
Okay. I always loved to read. I was a very quiet kid, very shy. You know, I'd go to the library every Saturday and take out as many books as I could carry, kind of a thing. And when it came to school, I would know the answer, but because I was shy, I seldom spoke up, right?
Yeah,
so I was one of those kids.
A lot of kids have that issue.
But when it came to writing, you know, that was what I was interested in, and I gravitated toward it because I was quiet. So in the fourth grade, we had a writing contest where we had to write something that, if it was good enough, it would be submitted to the paper, to our paper, which at the time was the Youngstown Vindicator.
Okay.
And I remember I had written a poem about the seasons. So it had 4 paragraphs, one for each season.
Okay.
And what happened was the newspaper ended up not only running it, but they ran it in 4 segments. So I had my byline.
You had a series. 4
times.
Wow.
Yes. And I thought that was really cool.
In the fourth grade.
Yes.
You must have been so proud of yourself.
Well, you know what? It got me hooked.
Yeah.
And what happened along the way is, I mean, my father knew I was a very curious kid. He knew I loved to read. One of his rules of life, if you will, was if you want to be successful, no matter what you do, you need to understand business. So he asked me to start reading the Wall Street Journal when I was in the fourth grade.
Oh, what a dad.
Yeah, you know, when you think about that now, that was very forward thinking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So every night I'd come home after school, I'd do my homework and have dinner, and then I'd read, you know, the day's issue of the Wall Street Journal.
And you were just a kid.
Yeah, but you know what? It taught me so much.
Yeah.
One, it helped me with my writing, you know, which is what I was really interested in.
Right.
But two, it taught me about business. It taught me about the companies that were running the country and the people that were in charge of things and why they were in charge.
It's all about people, Jaci.
It is.
It is,
and, you know, back then the journal had a wonderful way of writing and telling stories. And that's really what hooked me in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's good because people who are watching and listening, you know, can sort of feel that this is a nice way to help a child to develop, you know, the gift that they have. And you had this gift, you still have it, of course, but your dad, your family supported you and gave you that kind of strength.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful.
You know, looking back, I realize how lucky I was.
Sure.
But, you know, there's a bigger message with that, which is there's a lot of free media out there, and parents can be sharing media with their kids now and encouraging them to find out about their community, their world, what's going on, using it as a talking point. When kids get to be teenagers and they don't really want to talk to their parents anymore.
True.
You can still talk about sports. You can talk about current events. You can talk about what's in the news and use that as an excuse.
I like that a lot. I think it's so important. You and I think along the same lines. I encourage all of that. I love children, love working with children within my own family, but also, I've written a couple of books, and it's all dedicated to young people. But, when you talk about news, wow, this is an amazing subject. And you and I could talk for the next 2 days.
We could.
At least.
Sorry about that to everyone listening right now.
No, but the media, the news business affects everybody.
Yes.
Everybody has a comment to make. When you talk to people, and I enjoy doing that, they'll say, I'm not sure anymore if it's news or views.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue, Jackie, that I want you to address, because people are, if you're looking at an older generation, raise my hand, we remember when they just reported the news.
Right.
I mean, there were only like 3 networks.
Yes.
They gave you the news, and that was the end of it, the end of the day. Now we have a plethora.
Yeah.
I mean, 24 hours, 7, whatever it happens to be, not to mention the internet and everything else. So now people are wondering, where do I go? How do I know what is the truth, which has become a big issue? So with your experience, dealing with, local and also dealing with national news and information services, how is a person supposed to decide where to go and what is the truth?
Okay.
Yeah.
A very good question, which may take me 2 days to explain, but I'll try to do this quickly.
Okay.
We do see a huge difference in interest in news and what news is based on your generation. So basically, baby boomers say, this isn't the news I grew up with. What the heck happened? Where's the information that I want and need? Yeah. Where younger generations that grew up in the digital landscape, they don't know what local news is because they've never seen a local paper. So they just go online and they just see this mess in front of them and they're like, I can't figure out where do I go? Where's the information that I need? Because there's nothing online that just points them there. There are algorithms, but that's something different we can get into. So basically, depending on the generation you look at, as news changed dramatically, especially national news. The baby boomers want to know, why can't I just tune in and hear news and perspective of what's going on in the world?
Sure.
And that's because the trend, if you will, of what happened when you had so many cutbacks in news. And we talk about the business model being broken, and the actual news ecosystem is broken. It used to be you had a local reporter that got their experience working locally. They learned how to source facts. They learned how to find sources. They learned how to vet people as to whether or not they were actually experts or if they were just people looking for publicity and trying to get themselves on air, that sort of thing. That whole way of doing things doesn't exist anymore. So you no longer need the local experience to go to the national network. So you're missing that fact-finding portion. So now national news primarily is devoted to opinion and philosophy.
Yes.
know?
Well, they have to fill the time, Jackie.
They do. And that's really become the issue.
Yeah.
So you're overwhelmed with opinion instead of what we would call journalism or news.
Oh, just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
and
now
it's created a problem.
It has. So you really have to be educated now on where to go and, what's out there. So you have to do a lot of homework, which is kind of unfair when you think about it.
Right.
But what we see is you need to really take charge of your media diet, if we want to call it that. You want a little bit of exposure to national issues, but you want to make sure you're getting exposure from all sides of the equation.
Yes.
Yes. If you're going to turn on one channel, then you need to turn on another channel too, just to be able to compare. You want to be able to get national news. You want local news. You want some regional news, because you need to know what's going on in your state and your capital. They're the one determining your laws.
You know what you're talking about here, Jackie? You're talking about how we have to work harder.
Yes.
To get the news. Because going back, if you were watching the 3 networks that existed at one time, you did get the facts. They were just stories. Maybe there was an issue that became controversial, and maybe they tried to handle it in a separate way. I mean, I can remember television stations where you would have the general manager would come on and say, this is a so-and-so editorial. And they would do a short, commentary, and then they would have a rebuttal the following week. That's all gone. So everybody has to work harder, Jackie, to try to understand the news. Now, let me ask you this, because I've done local news in New York 40 plus years.
Yep.
And I'm staying, loyal to the local news department. Not that I don't, say anything negative about national news, because I've been involved in national news as well.
Yeah.
But from a local perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you're watching the local news, you're pretty much getting the stories, one after another. The local stories, and if it's a national story or an international story, it's just the facts. There is no time. There's a big factor. There's no time or place for any kind of commentary. So if you watch a local newscast, it's pretty straight, pretty forward, as opposed to the national news. Do you agree?
I agree, absolutely.
Yeah.
The other issue, which you're kind of alluding to, is, again, when you go online.
Yeah.
Okay, there's nothing to distinguish between the local and the national, and what's really news or misinformation or disinformation, or even if it's coming from a professional news outlet. Yeah. The great promise of the digital landscape was, if I had an opinion and I couldn't be heard in the news, I can go online and have my voice be heard, and I could be equal.
Right.
Jackie could be equal to Ernie. Well, the problem with that scenario is, what if Jackie isn't equal to Ernie? What if I don't have the facts? What if I can't put an opinion together based on the facts? So a lot of the promise that, was the future of news and media hasn't panned out the way we thought it would.
And Jackie, today, everybody can be a journalist.
Yes.
Everybody's got a podcast. Everybody has a YouTube channel. Everybody has an opportunity to be able to say whatever they want. And again, it's not news many times. It's opinion.
Right.
Sometimes it's okay, but other times it can be distorted, and you and I know how difficult that is. We talked about young people, and you've done something that I really admire you for. You've gone into the schools, and you've created a program to help these young people. That's so important. I want you to tell everybody about what you do and how you do it. Yeah.
Well, it was actually fun. We had gone into, it was 3rd to 5th grade that we worked with.
Yeah.
And it was creating a program really designed to build critical thinking skills. And news is perfect for that, because you could take one news article and take another news article on the same subject and say, compare these two things. What is one article telling you that the other article isn't? Maybe one article has an opinion in there that the other one doesn't. And then you compare the facts, and then you say, okay, what do you think? Which is really important with kids.
Yes.
So when you're talking about those ages, that 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, that's really when critical thinking skills are being built. And that's when it's vital to get to them and say, let's compare and contrast information.
So how is the program working?
Well, that we had done quite some time ago. It was interesting. I don't know if they're still doing it.
Okay.
That's the thing. Schools are under tremendous pressure.
That's true.
With what they need to teach.
Yep.
And when it comes to critical thinking and news and even understanding the internet and how to use it.
Right.
These are skill sets that kind of fall between the cracks. It's not English, it's not math, it's not science. So where do schools teach this? Now, every school should be teaching it.
No, it's a very important area.
But how do they teach it is the question, because, basically our school system is not in the same groove, if you will, as the way we're developing in terms of technology.
Yeah.
So the education system needs to be reformed in that regard.
Absolutely.
Because what we know for a fact is education moves very slow and technology moves very fast.
Yes.
And there's a disconnect.
And Jackie, sort of a sidebar to what we're talking about with young people and in school. When I've gone out in the New York area and spoken to a lot of students, I mean, we've had assemblies of 450 kids, and I've done it on a regular basis. And one of the things that got me to write another book about Ernie and the Big News, The Adventures of a TV Reporter, when I was talking to these young people, 4th, 5th graders, and I said, who would like to be, on the news someday? You want to be a reporter? You want to be an anchor and so forth? And they'd raise their hand and we would talk about that. And then I'd say, would you like to be on the news, something that you do, and we could report on it? Would you like to do something like that? Do you know that and this is sad, I would hear from these children, 4th, 5th graders, and they would say, Well, you got to do something bad to get on the news. You got to kill somebody. When I heard those words, chills, and I said, wait a minute, that's not true. But you know what? Unfortunately, we reward bad behavior many times.
Yes, we
and
do.
not good behavior. And that good news, if you will, that positive, uplifting news gets buried somewhere on the end and finally in the news.
Right.
And it's a little,
Yeah, I mean, that goes to the heart of kind of the state of news right now, which is it's been weakened, because it's in turmoil without having a real, business model. But there are many ways to tell a story. And this is where there's no excuse for what's going on. Because you and I could tell the same story. You could tell it from a positive standpoint. I could tell it from the, let's go with the blood and guts lead. So there's no excuse that all we're doing is blood and guts. We can tell the story a different way. We can frame the story a different way. There's many ways to do that.
You're right. And a lot of people in this business, who are in charge will say, you can't put the comics on the front page.
Yeah.
Because people won't buy the paper.
Well,
And
but you
there's
need
that
to
argument.
but you need to put a bright spot somewhere on that front page so
Yes.
that people want to pick up your front
I
page
agree with
tomorrow.
you. Balance is very, very
Yes.
important. And that's what I've always been, working on, the balance. Report the news. Absolutely. You and I are journalists. I would never talk about censoring a story.
Right.
To me, the facts are very important. Put the stories on. People need to know. But at the same time, get that balance going. You say, okay, here's the stuff that's going on, but you also have to know about these good things that are happening so that people can get an overview
Right.
of the world, of their community.
Yeah.
That's important.
I mean, there's actual research that shows there's two reasons why people tune out the news. One is it makes them depressed.
Oh, yeah.
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 So why are we doing that to people? We're willingly doing that to people. So let's just stop doing that. If people don't want the product,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yes.
That's the big problem before you start talking about why should they need why should they need the news? First they need to want the news.
Yes.
And then we can tell them what the news is about.
So let me ask you this, okay? Because we're covering a lot of bases here. And I like this a lot. You're
too.
great
It's
to
fun.
listen to because you do so much good work, and we need
thank
people
you.
like you. Thank God that we have you. If we were to say what you would like to see, how we can correct, improve, and make things better in terms of news coverage, and you've written so much, what do you think needs to be done? What do you think the major broadcast team should do, and individuals? What do we do to make it better?
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things, actually. First, I saw recently announced by CBS a great announcement, which I think will become a trend, where they're looking to hire up some local reporters that will be working in the field looking for national stories. So you'll be taking a story from the ground up, how it's impacting local communities, even though it's a bigger story.
Yep.
I love that idea.
Yes, very good.
What I would love to see the networks go even a step further, which is you have a network, you have all these affiliates out there.
Yeah.
We talk about, affordable housing being a crisis. Let's pull up some of the stories that those affiliates did so we can hear directly from what the people in Des Moines are saying about whether or not they can afford housing, or the folks in Juneau, Alaska, or Topeka, Kansas.
Right.
Tell me what's actually happening in the country. Then I'm going to get interested in what you're talking about,
Right.
because I'm seeing how it's really playing
And
out.
they're bona fide stories.
Yes, that, and it's your own work. You're showcasing your own work,
Sure.
which I would think a network would have, an affinity for doing.
Absolutely.
And then you can have the larger conversation of what this means and bring in the talking heads and the policymakers and those sorts of things. But you have the actual facts and the faces that are being impacted. That's what makes news powerful.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to see more of that
I
going
like that
on.
a lot. Do you think things will get better?
I do. The trend is starting to happen. You're starting to see little inroads being made here and there where, so much of what has been passing for what I'll call modern day news has been based on, well, the public wants the news fast. We don't have time to check the facts.
Right.
Well, if you don't check the facts, you don't have the news. So you can say you got the story, but if you didn't get the story right, you didn't get the story. You might as well be writing fiction without the facts.
Yeah.
So we're starting to get a better understanding of the public is driving the need for factual content.
Yes.
And the news media is starting to come around and understand what the public wants.
Yeah, we need that because, you know, when we hear so many people say, you know, I can't trust the media,
Right.
That hurts.
It does.
Because, you know, we've devoted our life to journalism and making sure that it's factual and it's fair and it's balanced. And when you see a distortion of that, and there are so many factors, and I do think, you know, internet has had a major role in people being able to say whatever they want on there with any responsibility.
Yes.
And that's where we have to be very careful. I love talking about this so much.
Oh, I do too. I'm having so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. No, you're really a gem, and I'm hoping that things will improve because, you know, we need it. We need to make sure that we keep everybody informed, and we have a more uplifting, positive attitude about media. It's a big job, no question about it, because it's gotten way out there.
Yes,
but maybe we can reel some of that back in and have some sense of responsibility to each other.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what I'd also love to see is just more media literacy programs happening out there.
Yeah.
Because it should be something that is taught everywhere as a standard. And it's not. The programs that we have don't go far enough, they don't go deep enough, and they don't go young enough.
Yeah.
You know, they're focused on college and high school kids.
Yes.
If they reach the high school kids, which is still a big if. You need to reach the young kids when they're teeny tiny.
Absolutely.
You know?
That's where it starts.
That's when they're questioning, and that's when they're saying, well, why? And that's when, if they read an article about something happening at their local park, then you take them to go see it themselves. And they verify for themselves. They understand how to verify a fact. That's what's important.
You know, I know you've heard this, but Walter Cronkite was a very dear friend.
Yes.
And when I worked at CBS, we got pretty close, and I spent a lot of time with Walter, and he was a wonderful person. And I remember, you know, one of the things that he said, you know, what do we do? He said, we are watchdogs. We look to see what's going on. We're not attack dogs, and we're not lap dogs, but we're watchdogs. We bark, and we want people to respond. And that should be a pretty simple way of doing our job. And I'm hoping that we can get back to that. There's room for opinion and commentary. There's no question about it. But I just think that we have to be responsible. We have to just understand that, you know, we're affecting so many people out there in terms of the way they think and the way they feel and the way they can act.
Right.
And I don't have to go through some of the terrible things that have happened in our society. And sometimes, you know, these people who've been responsible for something will talk about what they heard or what they saw. And that feeds into it. So I think we have to be careful with that.
It does. But what you're actually talking about is the impact of what's going on. Where, you know, for years now, it's been people inside the media just scrambling to be able to fill the time or to push something out the door.
Yes.
You know, to be able to sit back and say, okay, what are we really doing? Why are we getting up, you know, in the morning to do this? Those are the conversations that need to happen.
I agree.
Yeah.
I want you to give a little last piece of advice. You know, you talked about your story when you were in fourth grade.
Yeah.
And you wrote something, it ended up in the paper, and you got a byline as a series, which was great. If there's a young person out there, someone who's watching and listening and saying, you know, I'd like to do something. I'd like to do something in TV or radio or newspapers or whatever.
Yeah.
What advice do you have to a young person now in terms of what they should be thinking and doing?
Just start. That's the thing. Just start with whatever you got, with wherever you are. It doesn't matter if you have a whole story, part of a story, an idea for a story.
Yeah.
You know, everything today, when you become an adult, you know, part of the problem of being an adult is you act like an adult. You say, I need this, and then I have to get this, and I have to check this, and before I do that, I have to make dinner for other people. No, just start. No excuses, just start.
I like that. That's a great way. Jaci, you're a delight.
Thank
Jaci
you.
Clement, I mean, success to you with the Fair Media Council. I hope you get the kind of support that you always need out there to keep that going.
Yeah, you know what I would love, what my dream had always been, was that we actually create chapters of the Fair Media Council so that every community had it as a resource to help them connect with the news and understand news and have that dialogue.
So let everybody know, I always ask this question, if someone wants to reach you and the organization, they want to help out in any capacity, how do they reach you?
They reach out to me. My website is fairmediacouncil.org. My email is jackie@fairmediacouncil.org. I spell Jackie, Jaci. That was my mother. That's a whole nother story.
Great.
My cell phone, 516-318-2531. That's
Wow.
how you reach me.
You're amazing. You gave it all out there. Jackie, thank you so much. Congratulations
thank
to
you.
you. Keep up the good work.
Oh,
okay?
you too, and stay positive. I love
That's
this.
what we're working on, okay? Jaci Clement, thanks so much for being here. Hope
Thank
you
you.
enjoyed today's show. I had a great time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.